Hi everyone. So today I want to make some cream puffs, and specifically because it's fall, I want to make some pumpkin spice cream puffs. I do have to say that this recipe is pretty general and can be filled with whatever your heart desires, honestly. Cream puffs are one of those things that seem super complicated to make, but actually are really easy. So let's actually just go ahead and start. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is melt about 8 tablespoons or about 1 stick or 115 grams of butter in about 1 cup or 250 milliliters of water. So we're going to put this into ideally a saucepan, but I wanted you guys to be able to see what I was doing for filming, so I used this kind of more shallow skillet here. It worked well, but if you have a saucepan, that'll work a lot better. So we're going to go ahead and put this thing on medium heat, and we're going to allow the water to heat up and melt the butter. And while we're doing that, we need to add about 1 teaspoon of salt and 2 tablespoons of sugar. Once the butter has melted in the water, let's bring this thing up to a light boil. So just keep heating this up until we get some bubbles coming, and then add 1 cup of all-purpose flour. Now ideally you want to use a wooden spoon or something else that's really sturdy so that you can begin mixing this kind of thick paste dough. And we're going to do this while maintaining medium heat. Really be sure to mix this up and make sure there aren't any dry spots of flour in this mixture. And we're just going to cook this over medium heat for about 3 minutes. You should see a slight film form on the bottom of the pan, but I don't necessarily think this is the best indication because this actually forms quite quickly. We want to heat this up and cook the starch and flour here. If you stop too early, the cream puff will really have a solid structure and it won't taste that good. So after about 3 minutes of mixing and cooking, it's time to take the dough off the heat and place it into a bowl. Now we want to add eggs to this mixture, but if we do so now, we'll end up with scrambled eggs in our dough mixture, which is not really what we're going for here. So let's let this thing cool down for at least 10 minutes. It should be kind of coolish to the touch, and once it does get there, it's time to add the aforementioned eggs. So going one at a time, we're going to add in a total of 4 eggs. So what you're going to do is, for the first egg, you're just going to break it, add it in, and just begin mixing it into your dough, and keep mixing until it comes together. It will seem like you've messed up, and it won't really mix very well at first, but just keep working the dough until the egg completely disappears and is incorporated into the dough. This will take roughly about 30 seconds of mixing. Once your first egg is in, it's time to repeat this process 3 more times until all of the eggs are mixed into the dough. Once we've done that, that's it. We've actually made what's known as a pate choux, and this dough can be used for eclairs or for whatever else you want. It's a very flexible dough, but for us, we're gonna be making cream puffs now. So to get a good cream puff shape, we're going to use a piping bag. So scoop the pastry dough into a piping bag with a large opening, preferably with no frills or anything else on the tip for the piping bag. Get a tray with a silicone-lined baking mat or parchment paper or something so that basically these cream puffs don't stick, and then begin squeezing the stuff out. You want to apply an even pressure and really try to keep the tip deep in the center of the puff, and this will create a nice little puff blob. It may take some playing around in order to be able to get the shape right, but ideally you want something like this. So just keep repeating this process until you either run out of dough or space, making sure that you have enough space in between each puff so that you don't end up with puff blob interference once this thing starts to bake. So yeah, once you either run out of dough or space, it's time to actually get ready to bake these things. So there's a little bit of prep that we want to do. One is we want to first make sure that we don't have any tips sticking up. So any tip sticking up, just take a damp finger and just tamp them down. This will prevent that from burning. The second thing we want to do is add an egg wash. So just in a small bowl, get 1 egg and a few tablespoons of water, like 1 is enough. And then just mix this with a fork basically until it comes together and creates a nice yellowish mixture. And then just brush this over the top. And this will give us a nice color and glaze on the outside of our cream puffs. Okay, so now once our tray of puffs is ready, we want to place this tray into an oven that was preheated to 450 degrees Fahrenheit or 230 degrees Celsius. So quite hot actually. So once the puffs are in, just close the oven, give it a second for the oven to kind of come back to 450, and then turn it off. And we're gonna let these sit for about 10 minutes. After the 10 minutes are up, turn the oven back on, but set the temperature to 350 degrees Fahrenheit this time, and let them bake for an additional 10 to 15 minutes. Really, the best thing to do here is kind of go by eye. You really want to see them kind of puff up, and when the outsides get nice and golden brown. At which point, we can go ahead and pull these puppies out and let them cool. While they're cooling, it's a great time to make your filling. So for the filling, I'm using a whipped cream base, and I'm gonna add a little bit of maple syrup to sweeten this up. And yeah, basically, we can also add a little bit of vanilla if you want, and just basically mix this up and whip it until we have a nice stiff whipped cream. And then I'm gonna flavor this whipped cream with pumpkin. Now, ideally, I would be able to use some canned pumpkin and add my own pumpkin spices, but unfortunately, this is 2020, and therefore the universe only seems to have pumpkin pie filling for some reason, which has its own pre-added spices. So I went with that, and I'm gonna use 1 cup of this pumpkin pie filling, to which I'm gonna add 1/3 of a cup of evaporated milk, which kind of gives that old school flavor, as well as makes this a little bit more liquidy and easier to mix with the whipped cream. Just give this a good mix, and yeah, we can now mix this in with our whipped cream, and boom, we have our filling. Now, at this point, the puffs should be cooled enough where it's actually time to actually fill them. We want them to be completely cooled before we try to fill them. So I tried to be cool and fill them using a syringe-like attachment, but I tried this and they would overflow from all sorts of unknown holes and crevices, which just caused a total mess. So I don't think I have that technique down. I have seen people pull it off, but I'm not a super great pastry chef. So I'm gonna go for the semi-cheater method of cutting these puffs in half and then adding the filling into the cavernous interior to create the kind of sandwich-style cream puff. So I went ahead and did that, and that's it. If you guys follow these steps, you will have also successfully made some cream puffs. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please consider subscribing, and I hope to see you guys all soon. All right, bye.